2018. Where the hell are we? Do you have a shaman on speed dial?
Today we are talking about you never know who's listening. Shonagh, what do we mean by that?
Well, we were having this discussion earlier, talking about both the shadow side of you never know who's listening and the light side of that. And so the shadow side, of course, being that we are all being surveilled 24/7. So you never know who is listening into your phone calls or cataloging your emails or surveilling you when you are at the shopping mall or even in front of your computer in your own home, because there's cameras everywhere.
Things that were unimaginable a year ago are now just commonplace. It never even occurred. Claimed the Obama administration was surveilling me in Trump Tower, before the election. People are like, God dang it, you are so fucking bananas. 3 days later, on my giant TV popped up a JPEG that basically just said, please be aware that if your spoken words include personal or other sensitive information, that information will be among the data captured and transmitted to a third party through your use of voice recognition. Ooh.
So, okay, that's number 47, reason number 47 not to have a TV. That's also notice. They're giving you notice. We are listening to your most private conversations within the supposed privacy of your home, which is no longer private. So, actually, I've got something quickly to say to that, because you said it's without your consent, but they're giving you notice. And
well, they said if you want to opt out. So basically, they were just like, uh-oh, the cat's out of the bag, and they gave you notice if you don't want to be a part of this sharing of data program, go to your settings and uncheck these boxes, which of course I did. Mm-hmm. But, to your point, they did give me notice.
They have to give you notice. That's why it's important to learn the maxims, at least have a basic understanding of the maxims of law. And one of the maxims says, he who does not object appears to agree. And another one is silence is consent. And so, let me just quickly say that of course, all our emails are being surveilled as well. And I recently put something at the bottom of all my emails so that I'm putting out my own notice and I am objecting. And so this is what it says now at the bottom of every email I send out and respond with. This private email message, including any attachments, is limited for the sole use of the intended recipient and may contain privileged and/or confidential information. Any and all political, private, or public entities, federal, state, or local, corporate government, municipalities, international organizations, corporations, agents, investigators, or informants et al., and/or third parties working in collusion by collecting and/or monitoring my emails and any other means of spying and collecting these communications without my exclusive permission are barred from any and all unauthorized review, use, disclosure, or distribution. Any use of this email precludes an immediate forfeiture of $1 million species as defined by the Coin and Mintage Act of 1792 I'm not done yet, with explicit reservations of all my rights without prejudice and without recourse to me. Any omission does not constitute a waiver of any or all intellectual property rights or reserved rights. And then in capitals, I finish with a maxim that says notice to principal is notice to agent. Notice to agent is notice to principal. So I know you're laughing, and that might seem a bit much to you,
Wait,
Sarah.
hold on 1 second. I'm just processing that. What does that sound? Oh, people deleting, unsubscribing from this podcast. I mean, but that's the thing about being your friend. So many things that you say and believe, I'm like, oh, Jesus Christ. But in the end, it turns out, that's what you do. You are a fire hose that it's like pointed at a bunch of old varnish or a bunch of old wallpaper. You're like stripping away this thing that was previously unimaginable. I mean, for one thing, it's kind of like, well, I haven't done anything wrong and I'm not doing anything bad. Why should I care if part of me likes when Zappos serves me up an ad knowing the kind of shoes I like. That's one thing.
Yeah. But for a number of us, that is a violation. It feels very violating. It feels very creepy. And this is the main means of communication. And I think what we need to understand is we have become utterly dependent on this technology, which has been created for us, but not by us, you see? And so this is completely federally run.
Okay, question. So what is the practical, what is the prescription here? What if someone, what's the harm and what's the solution?
Well, part of the solution, of course, is just as, for instance, the folks on your TV set gave you notice that they will be listening and filing away anything and everything you say in the privacy of your own home, you have to, object and give notice back. And so what I read that I put at the bottom of my emails may seem extreme to the uninitiated, but, if you actually think that all is well and no one's gonna really care what you have to say or what you're thinking or doing, and that it's all fine and this is just for our own protection, then basically you're still squishing mashed peas through your fingers, for Lord's sake.
Okay, I object to that. Okay, but the thing is, okay, so to you, that's just part of. I know you, and there is no one who is more of a forward motion machine than you. I know this to be true. So in your mind, in your way of thinking about the world, this is just dotting another I and crossing another T.
That's right.
This is protecting yourself in the event of what?
Of anyone coming into the privacy of my life and imposing themselves commercially in any way, however that looks. Taking, vital information that is vital to me and filing it and whatnot and maybe turning it against me at some time, maybe pulling that up when I want to cross a border, for instance. You see, so it's just basically covering my own ass. There's a great old truism that says, it talks about a guy, some Arab dude, and he's going into the market and he's got his camel with him and he says to God, should I just trust you and not tie my camel? And God says, tell you what, trust me and tie up your camel. So this is tying up your camels. And the thing is, no, I don't trust the powers that be, not for 1 minute. And so as a seer, which I am, I can see what others can't, and I don't take the word of government or corporate entities as truth. Not with the track record these guys have. And so the idea is, let's be in the world and let's have some common sense. And the world is very different. We're in very different terrain right now, and so we need to. Thomas Jefferson said, an educated man knows his rights and how to defend them. It's thought that the internet was started by the military. They certainly had a major hand in it. And so the way I look at it now is, my goodness, like I said earlier, all of this technology has been created for us, and then we have been brought on board, and now everyone is addicted to their computer, to their iPhone. We're digitally addicted Everything is digital. And actually, they could very well shut down anyone's podcast. It can be all of a sudden not possible to even upload your podcast. There are podcasters who put their work up on YouTube who are losing their ability to receive any monetary backing because the powers that be don't like the topics that they discuss. So we are actually seeing more and more censorship come up. So it's just very important, at least on your own, to make sure you put your own notice out there that this is private. Yes, I'm using this means of communication, and this is private. And you've stated that. And there's another maxim of law that says, well, I said, he who does not object appears to agree. And so if no one's objected to your notice, then you have an agreement. So that's all I'm saying, that we want to have a deeper understanding of how to conduct ourselves in this sea of commerce. We're in a totally commercialized reality right now. I mean, that's the bottom line. Everything is commercialized. And so let's figure out how to ensure our own safety, because it's not going to be taught to us by this commercial system that we are in. And so this is the shadow side of you never know who's listening, in terms of, this is just realistic, common sense. Watch your ass.
Well, in case anyone is still listening, let's shift to...
Why wouldn't they be? I mean, an educated, thinking person, I would hope, would find this kind of thing interesting. Like, maybe I hadn't considered that before, or they've got a point.
Welcome to being your friend. Every day it's like, I had not considered that. It's the government.
Shut up.
The government has identified our IP addresses. As we transition out of the just because you're paranoid doesn't mean they're not watching you phase of the podcast, Shonagh and I are talking to our mystery guest and proof of the beautiful part of you never know who's listening. But it sounds like she's not there for a while, and then she will be there. So the wonderful side of you never know who's listening is there are 7.5 billion people on this planet. And if you're moved to put something out there, you're going to find your people one way or another eventually. So with Packing for Crazy Town, I just had to do it. I couldn't not do it. And so in my own DIY way, I just started putting them out there, and it was months into it. I probably had done 4 or 5 episodes, and I got my first email, and I'm like, oh my God, it's like an illusion. Is that really something in my inbox? And Brandi, if it's okay, I'm going to read this email. Okay, so, Sarah, so much gratitude being directed at you right now. And the little praying hands emoji. I am fucking loving your podcast, Podling. It comes with all its jewels and messages just at the perfect time, of course. I'm not exactly sure how I found it, but I believe I was looking for places where Shonagh Home was being interviewed. I have heard her on different shows and love the wisdom that she shares, and that is how I found you. I want to ask you to give you some encouragement to keep going, and at the same time, if these episodes and the one yet released end up being all of them, there is still so much there to appreciate and to nosh on time after time. I have listened and re-listened to everyone and always find the lessons currently evolving as this crazy life does. I absolutely love your attitude and position, really the dance you are creating with the madness and chaos of 2017, while at the same time yelling, bring it on. So thank you for your perspective. Thank you for your light. Thank you for your ability to find flow, or at least look for it within this wonderful chaos of these crazy times. And it was from this woman named Brandi Brandi, and I'm okay, this is a real person, and I think I probably scared you. I emailed back and said, oh my God, 10,000 downloads and you're the first sign of life in the potosphere. Will you be my best friend? And then an episode or two later, you wrote back and you said, hey, because I said, hey, what's your deal? What's going on? And then you wrote back, I just finished your last episode with Shonagh this morning and felt super moved to reach out and offer a little support. I have some skills that might help you along your path to continue the podcast. And if there's any way I can help so you can keep this knowledge coming, I'm jumping at the opportunity. Here's what I've got. I'm a graphic designer and I've got some mad visual skills. I also have a small home studio and can do some sound stuff too. I have other skills. These just seem like the most relevant. Love to help, la 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 la. With the love and light of the universe shining to you, let me know how I can help. And so I forwarded it to Shonagh and I wrote back and I go, well, we're thinking of doing this new podcast called The Shaman's Tech Support, and hey, we need a logo. And then you sent a link to your work and we were just going, oh my gosh. And then I watched your videos, and that's when I got it, because my prayer for Packing for Crazy Town was just like, I just want to find my people. I just want to know in this clown car pileup that there are people who are part of the solution. And I started watching your videos, and I never do this, but I watched every single one of them, and I was just laughing because I said, okay, I get it. It's not quantity, it's quality.
That's right.
And it's like you could have been, me in another life, in another dimension. So all that to say, Brandi Price reached out, and whatever icon you clicked on to get to this podcast, Brandi made. And when she sent her first version of it, I got goosebumps in my 7th chakra, my crown chakra, which has never happened before. And so I knew we were onto something. And I've been talking a lot, and I just Shonagh and I both just wanted to say, hi, we love you, and you are a manifestation. You are an example of the little Scooby snack from the universe that says, you know what? You're on the right path. Keep doing what you're doing if it feels good. So we just wanted to bring you on, and just we call you the goddess from Austin, and we just wanted to say thank you, and also I just want to hear more about who you are and how you came to us, and kind of map that moment, that kind of magical metaphysical moment where, the sacred contract that we all made, a jillion years ago kind of comes to fruition, and here you are. And God, I'm talking a lot.
It's great. It's good stuff.
Let's assume that my self-congratulatory reading of your loving emails got recorded, okay. And then we say, and basically the whole point is that mysterious, that which moves us to act. I mean,
right?
Why did you even email me? And I guess just start there.
Yeah, and Sarah, it's interesting because now we've attempted this a couple times, and I've heard you say this a couple times, and it's not until this moment that I realized the context in which that my email came to you. And as you were reading it, I was thinking, wow, that's a really kind compliment to give someone who's doing a podcast. And now I realized why you were, kind of freaking out about it. It was because it was like the first, kind of like the first connection. And so, it's like, and now, I kind of want to back up a little bit to present the context in which that I contacted you, because I think that's important for the kind of the weaving of it together.
Yes.
But a couple, I guess, maybe a year or so before contact, I had really started looking for women's voices, and women's voices in the media, women's voices in books, women's voices in everything that I was interested in, which I'm interested in everything occult and esoteric and, having to do with psychedelic realities and just the weird stuff, right? Like, I'm into that. And that's how I found Shonagh and Shonagh's voice and Shonagh's wisdom. And I think, I think I'd listened to a podcast, I don't even remember which one it was that she was a guest on. And I'd come to some day this summer and just been like, oh, I need a woman's voice, because we do have different approaches and different ways of perceiving and digesting and coming back to the world. And it's like, I need my people. I need someone who understands where I'm coming from. You know what I mean? Or at least I can have a little better context of where they're coming from. And that's when I just searched. I think I searched Shonagh's name and I found your podcast. And you were just a couple of episodes in, and I instantly was just in love, right? Like, it was exactly the medicine that I needed at the time. And I'm kind of a podcast junkie. I love listening to people's voices and opinions and stories. And, sometimes I feel like I isolate myself a little bit, but it helps me kind of contextualize where I'm at, where I'm at in this like crazy, wacky world we're living in. And so I remember being in the grocery store and listening because I couldn't put it down. Like, I had to go to the grocery store and I couldn't stop listening to the podcast, Sarah. And it was, like I said, the one that you were saying, okay, I've done this, I've done 5. I don't know what I'm going to do, and of all the podcasts that I listen to, I have never emailed anyone. Okay. Like, I've never reached out to a host. I've never written a review. I'm kind of the shittiest podcast listener that gives nothing back. Okay. But there was just something that I was just like, I have to tell her. And, I part of the thing that I think about when I want to talk to these people that have shows that I listen to, I'm like, I don't know what to say, and maybe they wouldn't understand, maybe I wouldn't say the right words. They wouldn't understand how much gratitude that I really have for them and what they're coming with. And so I'll say, okay, well, I'll send prayers, and that's my, I don't have to raise my voice or type an email. I'll send many prayers, which is also a good thing.
We'll take those.
But yes, definitely. But on this time, I just was like, and I felt really compelled to just reach out. And it was interesting, it's also like you find your people, it's like when you speak up, you find your people. And I think that's everything from our conversations to how we talk. And I'm so excited about the Shaman's tech support. And it's just interesting because it has all just felt really natural. And wow, how cool, it's an obvious universe being like, all right, all you have to do is, it's like that motion in your mind. Those are the prayers. And then the actual, it's like, it's the physical motion that brings it together. It's like, see, just put a little physical motion behind things and look what can happen.
Well, I mean, from the very beginning, and I thought of when I started looking at your videos and, seeing this sort of you have this kind of, effortless, fearless creativity in your work that I noticed and I really responded to. And that's, in a football game when football players cross the finish line, then they point upwards. They're always like, hey, thanks for letting me catch that ball. And I feel like these days that's my kind of my default state, because I feel like when the yarn is done unraveling from this sweater that's currently unraveling, I think at the end of it, there's just something hilarious. I'm counting on that. And I felt laughter when I was looking at your thing, just because it's like, okay, it's a long time coming, but this is one awesome Scooby snack. And so also with your voice, you really, I think you really need your own podcast. I mean, we're going to have you back on, but talk to us. I mean, with Packing for Crazy Town, I was always like, okay, let's not get into story. I just want the gold right away from whoever I had on. But with you, I'm curious. So did you always start out in Texas, or you were in Virginia at some point?
Right. Yeah. I was born and raised in Texas. Right. Texas girl. I went to my undergrad at Texas Tech University. And then I moved to Georgia, and that's probably when I really started playing music and performing in a band. And I've always been drawn to music. I've always, I played in high school band or whatever, but that was really the moment that I like strapped on a guitar and got in front of a microphone and was like, oh yeah, this is my jam, like I got to keep doing this. And after I was in Athens for a bit, I moved back to Texas. And that time I was like, I got to get out of Texas. I got to do something different. And so I went to grad school in Virginia. And that's really, it's so interesting that you comment about those videos, Sarah. And I mean, the compliment you gave about the crown chakra sparkles, like that's the best compliment I've ever gotten about any design work for sure. But it was during that time that I really started finding confidence in my voice, and realizing that we each have a unique way of creating. I think before that, it was just, especially with my background as a graphic designer, and that's kind of how I entered the art space of, it's you're producing something for something. It's not your, you're listening to the client and understanding their needs. And I just always thought it was kind of a mechanical process. And it wasn't until I got into grad school that I realized that there was something unique about the way that everyone creates, and I think it was I actually kind of stopped giving a fuck in grad school too. I was like, there was no one to please, and I didn't know what I was doing. And so it was like, I'm just going to make whatever the hell I want to make,
Which was, but that was just the beauty of those. I completely could relate to the fact like you had made all these maybe 7 years ago, and now a small amount of people had found their way to them, and they were on Tumblr, and I could just completely relate. It was like, you weren't making this to sell anything. These were just coming from your soul.
Yeah. And really it's so, I don't know, we think about the time, human time and universal time. And it's like, we create things and it's like, okay, I made this and I'm going to put it out and now I need some applause, Yeah. And it's just interesting to think about this time of the universe of you being able to see me and see my the way that I approach, probably everything, music, sound, space, color, and realizing that was something that was 7 years ago, and still
it's part of
relevant.
Quantum. Yes, it's quantum. So that was 7 years ago, but it was talking to me right now as I was, reaching out to you. And so your creativity, your music, everything is kind of intertwined with you, and you're also a mother, and you're working in artificial intelligence. Mm-hmm. And when you and I were talking with Shonagh, you mentioned you had a really interesting take on. You were also, last time we tried to do this, you were on your way to your goddess yoga class, and I'm just loving the juxtaposition of Brandi, our rock goddess from Austin, working in artificial intelligence. I mean, where does the twain meet with all that?
Gosh, yeah. I don't know. I think that's something that I question every day. I think that's what we question. It's like, what am I doing here? What is going on? How did I get here? How did I get in this? What is this place? Where's my beautiful wife? I think that just from the beginning, my ethic of like kind of this like work ethic of like, you're going to work and I try, sometimes it's really hard to not say, Brandi, you didn't put your full effort into to being an artist, right? And then you went off and got a job, right? But I think when I'm a little bit more gentle with myself and look at that and realizing like how many ways that I'm weaving in all of those things, right? Like, and I think it's becoming evidently clear now that I'm working in the AI industry. It's like, it is important that I go to Goddess Yoga on Sunday and then I go and work in a very male-dominated, artificial intelligence, technology, kind of industry. And it is important that I think about vibrational qualities and meditation. And astrology and all the, whatever I'm dipping into at the moment, and then approaching this thing that's kind of shaping all of our realities,
Well, again, speak to, so one of my, I guess my ultimate goal is to vibrate at the highest possible frequency, without spontaneously combusting. And I mean, I am a drummer, so that's a possibility. But, so you're all about vibration, and I mean, a lot. You were talking. You have healing bowls and stuff. Talk to me about, how what is that to you?
Yeah, and I would say that's, for me, it's, I've something that I've really cultivated over the last couple of years is my practice, right? Like whatever that practice is. And as it's developed now, like super currently, I get up in the morning and my daughter goes to school and my husband goes to work, and I have like an hour and a half all by myself, which is quite a luxury. And every day the first thing is like showing gratitude to that, because I know that's, especially with a child, that's not easy, That's something I'm very fortunate for. But that practice has developed into, reading and writing, and I do yoga. And probably the thing that I've added here within the last couple of years is vibration meditation and singing bowls. I also just recently added some bells. They kind of sound like wind chimes, but they're kind of all tuned differently. And I use those every morning just, to send intention, send love, help me come to my highest vibration. But, to tell you the truth there, I'm really I'm struggling right now with it in that practice, because it's really hard. I think it's really challenging. It's challenging for me to bring myself daily to a point where I am, I've released, I've let go, I've opened myself up, and I'm zinging, I'm like at that high vibe. And then you leave that and you walk out into the real world,
that reminds me of a story, Brandi, that a Native woman told me once, that she said she and her husband met this lovely older man, Native man, who became a spiritual teacher to them. And they worked with him for a number of years. And at one point, she was going to spend a week out in the desert by herself. I think that was like part of a group, and then you split up individually, and you're out there for a whole week. And this was in the state of Washington, on the in eastern Washington. And so she had this extraordinary time spent out there by herself, and it was just amazing. And this teacher had said, would it be okay if I picked you up at the end of that week? And she said, sure. So he picks her up at the end of the week, and she is just, completely glowing, as you say, just, filled with that week's experience and time away from, the crazy world. And so she gets in the car and they start driving, and they end up in a Walmart parking lot. And she looks at him and says, what are we doing here? And he said to her, are you holding the desert in you? And she said, yeah, I am. And he said, good. Then go in there and hold the desert in there. And so, I just never forgot that, because I thought, oh my God, like that is, we all have our beautiful oasis. Well, some of us do, within our home, or the home itself is just this oasis, right? And it's where we can get clear and centered and grounded and everything. And then ultimately where the rubber meets the road is, can we then take that with us when we leave? And now, boy, you are speaking to quite a sharp contrast there between, because I was thinking when you were talking about working with the singing bowls, that is sound vibration. And the digital world is, you're talking about a very different vibration, and we're all being bathed in it right now. This signal it's a pulse. A pulsing signal, 60 pulses per second, totally unnatural. It's really wreaking havoc with us. And I was thinking, oh my goodness, this is actually sounds like an excellent practice to work with those bowls, because that is a very different vibration. And it feels to me, first of all, like it would be would help the body somewhat to center, compared to all those digital vibrations that we're bathed in. And anyway, but then off you go to work in like what I think is just a bizarre, I mean, I'm sure you think it's kind of bizarre yourself, like a bizarre industry. Like, how the hell did we get here? And then I don't know, I kind of feel like it's your job you go there with all your gorgeous, everything you're carrying, and you infuse that insane place in however you can.
Not to judge, Shonagh.
Well, I will. I judge.
Shaunagh's the judger.
Guilty. In any case, but seriously, but that is something to consider. That all right, you, and I think that is so essential. And I talk to clients about doing just that, about taking what time you can in the morning to yourself and getting yourself into a centered, grounded place. But then you got to take it with you, and it is not easy.
Right.
Wait,
it isn't that the integration is that, right? Like, it doesn't matter what kind of messages or what the vibration we can create, but if we can't maneuver that outside of that space, right?
Mm-hmm. But do you have a practice that kind of also includes sort of surrounding yourself with some sort of protection, some light, or as you go out, or is that part of, like, what is your meditation practice?
Yeah, I definitely, I go through this whole ritual, and it's probably, sometimes I think about it, I'm like, this is kind of intense to do like every day. But I just love the space that it's like, it's touching those magic spaces, and remembering that they're there, remembering that I always have access to them. And recently I've been a lot more focusing on, I think for a while when I would ring the bells and I would think about just letting that vibration move through the earth, move through the air, move through, touch every soul, touch every animal, touch the wind, touch the earth. And it's only until recently that I've realized, like, cultivating the self-love aspect of it first, and making sure that I'm really filled first. And then that space, that love that I'm sending out, that I hold that within myself. And it's interesting to watch how much easier it is when I start letting that love vibrate, resonate from me, how much easier it moves when I've filled myself first.
I mean, like, when mommy's happy, everybody's happy.
Truly.
I love that math. That is some good calculus there.
And I have this voice in the back of my mind that goes, you can't give from an empty well, baby. Like, and it's like that same, the can't give from an empty well, baby. I don't know who that is, but I hear it. I mean, a lot. But, and too, like the protection and the ball of protection around myself is something I definitely, I don't leave the house without that,
And so then how's all that serving you when you get to your AI deal?
Shonagh makes AI sound like a dirty word.
AI. Once I'm confronted with the AI when I walk into my office.
Okay, go ahead.
I think just like anything, when we try to, integrating any message into the real world or any kind of vibration, sometimes it's great. Sometimes I walk in and I'm able to really keep that vibration and move into meetings. And, it's like there's something that I think about a lot with mind pattern, cortex, with your cortex and everything firing. And whenever there's any kind of trauma, it stops, right? It becomes still, and that's stagnation, right? And that's where everything kind of gets caught, and then that manifests into the body. It's kind of this idea. And so most of the time I'm like, if I can just keep a space around me, be able to keep a composure on my face of like, I'm not going to come in here and eat anyone and no one's eating me. Then like I can hold that stagnation off a little bit. You know, can I prolong until we all get cranky and, you know, cranky at each other because of the different necessities that we need for projects or whatever. But you know, some days I go in and it just is like it crashes instantly. And I'm like down on the ground, crawling over rocks. You know, it varies.
And so, are you finding kind of that was one of the sort of the core, you know, the core of packing for Crazy Town is nobody has any idea what's coming tomorrow. So do you find yourself, I mean, can you put yourself in a space where you're just open? It's kind of the surprise me baby space where even at work you're like, all right, let's take the vice and stretch the possibility out that something amazing could happen. Does that, but by the way, like what do you actually do? Like, what do you, when you sit down to do your work, what is it? Can you say? I mean, do we have to sign an NDA? I don't know.
Shaungh's listening, right? I don't know that I should say.
I am listening to every word. Go on.
Sipping her homemade kombucha. She's got your okay.
Oh, that's funny. Now I'm forgetting the question.
It's like, so what is your actual job?
Yeah, so I do a lot of user experience, user testing, UI type things. So it's any type of visual interface that supports, you know, whatever product we're trying to build. And most of the time, we conceptualize on how this technology, how learning technologies, how learning systems can be utilized within different businesses. So
that sounds really, that's gripping.
No, right? Okay. That's Shonagh. Okay, but the truth is, I mean, I'm sure you're probably never bored. I mean, because are you using your graphical arts abilities then?
Yeah, but you know, I don't much, and really the reason that the aspects of this job that I do like is it's like I gotta think a lot, you know, and think about different ways to address things. And, you know, the technology it's not like, you know, the machine learning engineers don't come to us and say, okay, the technology works like this. Now fit this to a business, you know. We are both kind of asking questions and trying to figure out the best aspects. So it's never a here's the problem and here's the solution. And where that kind of ties back into bringing my high vibration is it's a lot of just discussing and communicating. And what I've really realized being in this industry, different than, you know, other more just design based jobs, is that we all communicate so differently. And a lot of what I do is just try to make sense out of what everyone is saying. And as the designer, as the visual aspect of that, it's like I'm the interpreter, because once we see something, once we all see something in a visual, then it's easier to understand, right? Like when we talk, everything is concept. We see a picture of it, it's like, okay, I can see this, and that's not what I meant. You know, I actually meant it works like this or it works like that. So that's a lot of what I do at work.
And then is your daughter in school yet then?
Yes, she is, which is really nice.
And so do you have the flexibility you can go, I mean, is your job such you can go get her after school or?
Oh yeah. I mean, and that's probably, I mean, that's the thing that benefits me the most is the flexibility and the ability to be mom, you know, because it's not, I don't know, it's kind of like, you know, it's back to that story of like, I wish I could stay in the space of high vibration and meditation all day. And it's like, in the same breath, I think I could also say, I wish I could just be mom all the time and just be here and to be baking bread. And I do wish I could bake some bread, but there's a balance there. And I'm glad that I'm able to still, you know, be I pick her up from school a lot. And kind of have a lot of that flexibility. So that's cool.
Well, this is kind of the segue into the third aspect of you never know who's listening, which, and I know that you're a party to this too, which is basically wrangling the forces that we can't see, right, Shonagh, to aid us in crafting our ask in unexpected times. And I know you've got Walter. Is that Walter?
Yes. Walter.
Yeah. Well, these are self-created, entities, if you will, intelligences. Yes.
You know, I have to say, after listening to the podcast when y'all were talking about, these helpers, right? Mm-hmm. And I've had Walter for a while, and he's great. He's my parking guy, and I've expanded his ability to all transportation needs, so traffic and everything else. And he always comes in for me. But I've asked for another Richard, who helps keep my house clean, but his idea of a organized living space might be a little different than mine.
Well, I mean, Shonagh, that's part of my experience working with you and seeing how incredibly in touch and what comes through for you from entities, beings that are objectively invisible, but visible to you. That's really part of your magic and part of your power is that you've got that connection going on.
Yeah, well, I think of them as spirit intelligences, and in this very commercial, unnatural world in which we find ourselves these days, we've been utterly disconnected from that, and so it is dismissed or mocked. But historically, through the millennia, human beings have always related to the unseen worlds and had just a natural understanding that too exists, and we can engage it in different ways. And so you never know who's listening. I know this to be true, that our ancestry does support us to a degree. I know that we are on some level watched, if you will, observed, assisted, tested. There have been, many, many, many stories told by people of experiencing, some kind of divine intervention. And so yeah, never know who's listening. Is true in that world as well. And so that has I've utilized that as a way of giving myself the ability to persevere, to see myself through difficult times, and also to request help from those realms as well. And it tends to work for me. And then, as we were just saying, you can also call to yourself a kind of unseen helper, if you will. Now, my late teacher, Brew Joy, would call these resources that are found within the deep psyche. And the deep psyche is the Greek word for soul, and that is a mystery unto itself. So, we're tapping the mystery with the understanding that it is also participating in our life in a more subtle way.
Shonagh, I want to ask you about how that translates. With your daughters, like how do you give them that gift of knowing, or how do you teach them that?
That's a good question. I have,
especially since they're teenagers,
and
are like, mom,
whatever, mom.
They could care less at this point about anything we're talking about. But at the same time, they've been raised in it, and so I have, more than anything, just been very careful with my girls in terms of not imposing what I'm in touch with on them, but more just, it's there. They know what their mom does. They meet the clients all the time because I host these retreats out of my home. So they've been experiencing that for some time. And we talk candidly about this. And then their dad is basically an agnostic. So I just say to them, look, this is a deeply personal piece. And so just know that, of course, there is some master intelligence that has put all of this in place, and this, the architect of nature cannot be, shall we say, trumped. And, so hopefully, I hope for you someday that you will come into connection with your own understanding of that. So I've made it into like a very personal piece for them. And so we'll have conversations about this, but yeah, at this point, one is 19, one is 17. They're
pretty big.
Yeah. They're into they have other interests at this point.
But they're fantastic girls, and they're free thinkers.
Totally.
Mostly. No, they're fantastic 100%. I mean, you consider them, that they're in the matrix, just like my 16-year-old son. I mean, they...
Yes, to my horror, I wanted to give, before I knew, what I know now, I wanted to give my girls, I wanted them to have a better experience of school than I did, because my experience of school was no fun, and in junior high I was bullied and whatever, and high school was not good, So anyway, I just thought I want to make sure that my girls have a better experience. And by God, so they've been through private school because their father, God bless him, has made that happen. Only, though, to realize to my horror that they're every bit as indoctrinated in private school, of course, as they would be in public school, and they've been indoctrinated.
Right.
So, now how do I break that indoctrination? And very carefully, right? Because that is... that's based on conditioning, Pavlovian and Skinner conditioning, and it's all about the group. They exploit our need to be tribal, and so, it's about unquestioning compliance and conformity, and you're made to feel like a total dumbass if you don't conform to the group. And anyway, so, right? So they really, play on the group thing, and so all your friends are doing the same thing, and you want to be like everybody else. And I certainly did when I was in high school. I tried my darndest to fit in with this group, and that didn't work. And so with that group, and that didn't work. And I was really a square peg trying to fit into a round hole. But I really gave it my all to try to, fit into some kind of group. To no avail. And of course, now I see how it served. But back then it was so painful. And I just, I didn't want that for my girls. So, yeah.
Wow.
But again, they've got, a Wall Street dad, so a very in the matrix dad, but he's way cool, used to be a surfer in California way back when, and, he's a cool guy, but, and then there's their mom who's grounded and yet out there. For sure, by a lot of people's standards. And so I just figure, all right, they've chosen us, and so they will make their own decisions moving forward.
Wow.
Yeah.
So how old is your daughter, Brandi?
She's 5. 5 years old. And like I hear talking about your teenagers, and I'm just like, oh God. Like how, just that, of course we all have these experiences growing up that shape the way that we are, right? And the things that we do or don't like, and the things that we're like, oh, I won't have that for my daughter, or I'm going to try to, help her feel empowered in this area or that area. And, it's funny because something that I struggle with of like, I felt that my parents had too many rules. There were too many damn rules all the time, and they cut my butterfly wings off. But in like trying to protect that space from my daughter, and trying to like give her what I didn't have, it's like I'm creating this other type, or I'm not creating anything, but it's like opening this space. It's like we were with some family this weekend for the holiday, and she's real big into the no, it's not. Yeah, it is. Like it's like whatever you say, it's like And I think like one of the things that I appreciate about my own personality is like in the big bag of world out there, when someone says you have to do this, I'm like, I don't know, I'm not so sure about that, But like when it comes at you from a 5-year-old, it's like, oh God, everyone is saying, it's like Felix is annoying everyone because she wouldn't just do what you ask her to, I don't know. I had this this moment a couple weeks ago where I was just kind of, it's over. I think, there's so many things that become overwhelming in this life we're living. And I sat down and tried to get really quiet about it and just these kind of things that I was facing. And the message that I got was like, every generation will fall into the sins of their generation, right? But it's different each time. And so it's like, how do we, of course we can try to protect, or not protect, but have something different than what we had, but we have no clue. It's a different world, right? And it is for every generation.
Yeah,
and
it is.
It has to be okay that, they're on their devices. And I think that there's going to be some sort of balancing and reckoning and some kind of blowback from that. But, you can't get too, I would say you can't get too worked up in it. But does your daughter see you meditate, and is she interested in the whole concept of stillness, or is that just like, why would anyone bother with stillness?
I mean, she's definitely is not sitting down and meditating with me.
Yeah.
But she actually, whenever she's trying to make a bargain with me on something, she'll be like, I'll let you meditate as long as you want to. If you do this for me, I will let you.
Clever girl.
So I'm sure she'll, truly. I'm sure she'll go with some kind of like, my mom, she's just like meditating all the time,
What, another question I've been wondering is, what is the name of your band?
The Diamond Center.
The Diamond Sensor or Center?
The center, like the center of the diamond.
Ah, the Diamond Center.
Yeah.
Cool.
Yeah.
What kind of music?
Yeah. We play, it's like, I would, for lack of, or for need of putting it into any genre, I would say it's like psychedelic rock.
Cool.
My husband and I have had this band for almost a decade now. Which is, it's like one of those things where you start doing something, you're just doing it, and you're like, it's not you're just doing it. And then you're like, holy crap, I've been doing this for 10 years. But it's amazing. There's a very unique bond that we have being able to create music together. It's definitely some type of form of therapy for sure. And just as we transition from, Kyle and I were both married when we met and started making music together. And now, we've been married for a couple of years and have a child, and we still, create and write together. And it's just interesting to think about how much life is worked out.
Going forward, with the Shaman's tech support, what would be helpful to you? The idea generally was that we'd do these about 20 minutes long. It's not quite the amuse-bouche yet. We haven't crafted that to perfection, but what would be helpful for someone like you, who is an advanced seeker, say?
Okay, so I'm just going to tell you the first thing that comes to my mind right when you start asking this question. So one of the first, I believe it might have been the first Packing for Crazy Town that I listened to. And Shonagh, you read a poem that you had channeled or was given or divined. And at that moment, I specifically remember we were about to go on tour, our band. And I was driving my daughter to my mom's house. And my mom and I had just gotten into a conversation about how her giving advice on how to raise my daughter that was rather challenging because it was.
Oh, everyone wants that, Brandi.
I know, right? And it kind of that thing. It was like, I see how you built a wall between me and you, but because of the way that you wanted to control the situation, essentially. And you asking me to do this now to my own daughter, and it was confusing, and I was really and I was driving my beloved daughter to be with my mother for 2 weeks, and very grateful also for the fact that she can go with my mom and we can go on tour. But I'm driving, and I drive down this country road in Texas. It's beautiful, and I'm like listening to Shonagh read this message of just from a different realm, you know, and realizing that this is not the only. This is one reality, but it's not the only one. And there was a great peace that came over me, realizing that someone else is touching that and bringing that back and giving wisdom from it. Because I feel that, but it's easy to become isolated within your own spiritual practice and learning your own languages, you know. And I think that's another reason that, you know, I was such a supporter of this of Sarah doing these podcasts, is like, just to hear everyone's unique voice and realizing that there's a thread of similarity, but just different perspectives, you know, that there is something more, that it's not this fear-based thing that we have to worry about the AIs, you know, like there's something more. And that's really encouraging. And that's what I want more of, ladies.
Right on.
Right on.
Okay.
And anything else that you have to offer, I will be drinking as fast as possible.
Brandi Price from Austin, our rock goddess from Austin. I'm going to get off here and check out the Diamond Center. And
I also want to mention, and I'm gonna say this out loud because it's kind of been this little pet project that I've been working on, and I'm gonna say it out loud to make me like light a little fire under my ass.
yes.
But I've been working on recording some meditation, guided meditations, and some different bells with my bells and bowls. So I will be giving you a link for that too.
Excellent.
To put out there in the world.
Oh, fantastic. Great. I will avail myself of that for sure.
Me too. Me too.
Great. God, thank you so much, Brandi. This is so fun.
You never know who's listening.
I love talking to y'all.
Yeah, this is great. This is great. How lucky we are that you put yourself out and introduced yourself and made a gorgeous logo and the collaborative music as well. This is it's brilliant.
Yeah.
Meant to be.
Yeah.
Meant to be.
Yeah, yeah. And just goes to show you never know who's listening.
You never know. We need a little jingle. You never know. You never know. It's 2018. Where the hell are we?